Hi, I'm Mark McKnight and welcome to this lesson with learnandplayit.com. Today we're going to be taking the next step in our approach to basic jazz guitar, and we're going to be covering one of the really fundamental aspects that every person who's learning jazz guitar needs to be able to cover to some degree, and that's walking bass. So this is a kind of accompaniment that's going to be useful in a duo or trio setting, where ideally without a bass player. You don't really need to do this when the bass player's there, otherwise you might get a little angry. So basically what we're going to do is run through a B-flat blues, one of the really common progressions we've been looking at, and we're going to look at a couple of different ways of walking bass through that. The way we're going to do this is I'm going to play an example, maybe two choruses of a blues, and show you some techniques that you can employ whenever you're comping. The voicings I'm going to be using are going to be root and guide tone voicings, but with some tensions. Now tensions are obviously, we have the 1, 3, 5 and 7 from the scale that are the chord tones. Tensions are the 2, the 11 and the 2, the 4 and the 6 that we sometimes call the 9, the 11 and the 13. They're like extensions onto the chord. At the moment we haven't really talked about these, but it's going to be something that becomes more important in the future. So what I ideally want you to try and do is, there's going to be obviously a transcription of this material accompanying the lesson, so I'd like you to try and learn it and play along with me. It's more, obviously at this stage you know how to play the root and guide tone voicings for the blues, so this is more about learning the rhythmical techniques and some basic fingering techniques about how to actually get through this progression in a more interesting way, so that whenever you're, say, playing in a duo situation with a saxophone player or some kind of soloist, you can create the illusion of a more full rhythm section just from the guitar. So let me play the example and then we'll talk about some of the techniques I've used. And again, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of the techniques I employed there. Obviously a lot of the time I was using the root and guide tone voicings. In fact, really all the time. I didn't add too many tensions in at all. So it's more of a rhythmical thing that's going to make these interesting, as opposed to just going. So you can hear there that I'm accenting on the 2 and the 4. Those are the areas where of the bar where the most emphasis goes in jazz, so we try to make the swing feel through that. So that's something you're going to have to bear in mind the whole way through this particular topic. So let's look at some of the actual things I played in that example and explain a little bit about them. We've got, starting on the B flat, I used some passing chords to fill out the bar. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, bearing in mind that with a walking bass line, we want to connect the bass note of the first chord to the bass note of the second chord within that allotted space of a bar. We've effectively got 4 beats to fill up. So that's exactly what we're doing there. We're walking 1, 2, 3, 4 up to the E flat. So we've got B flat 7, C minor 7, D flat diminished, and then this is a kind of inversion. You call it an inversion of just a B flat major triad. So don't worry too much about the names at the moment, just take it that they're all B flat in a way, they're all passing chords, and this is going to be a shape or a pattern you can employ whenever you're filling up one bar of a dominant seventh chord. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4. Once you get up to E flat, you can do this again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now at this stage, we could jump up to this B flat, and we play 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So this is really just a big way of filling out the 2 bars we have. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are both kinds of B flat. And then we have, for the 2-5-1 bar, we actually fill that with 4 chords. G minor 7, and then effectively C7. This is called a sub 5. Again, something we'll talk about in future lessons, so don't be too concerned about the explanation now. Just try and get it under your fingers. F minor 7, B flat 7 or E7, and that brings us back to our our E flat on target. So at this stage, we then continue. And that effectively fills up the 2 bars that were allotted to E flat 7 and A flat 7. We're using exactly the same pattern we did just previously. 1, 2, 3, 4 are both E flat 7, and this time instead of one beat per chord, we give each of these chords in the 2-5 2 beats. Okay, so those are the main sort of passing chords that we used in the exercise. Another element that I want to draw your attention to was the use of a tonic pedal. Okay, so I used this in the first 2 bars of the second chorus, I believe, to try and build tension. So as opposed to keeping the tonic or the 1 in the bass, having that drone on there, it builds tension up. Okay, so that's another idea to think about. And then the final thing that I'll come back to is to do with rhythm. So there's a couple of different ways of putting different rhythmic effects into your comping. One really interesting thing to do with these root and guide tone voicings, because there are only 3 notes, is to try and arpeggiate them. So if you have a 2-5-1 that was going, you could play all the notes separately as arpeggios. So that's another possible idea. The idea of taking the bass and playing it separately to the main guide tones in the chord is another thing. You can also hear a lot of the time I'm adding open strings immediately before playing the bass note of the chord. This kind of gives a pushing quality, and it keeps the music sort of moving forward if you listen to that. Okay, so why don't you try taking all these techniques? First of all, learn exactly what I did, play along with that, internalize it and make it part of your practicing, and then try taking all the techniques and writing some of your own comping ideas throughout either a B-flat blues or any other piece that you're familiar with, maybe a standard or even just a series of 2-5-1s. That would be a great exercise. So hopefully you'll enjoy that, and I'll see you in the next lesson.